What's up guys, my name is Matthew and today we're doing something a little crazy. We are doing a reading vlog for a fantasy book, particularly Mistborn by Brent Sanderson. Read fantasy. I actually never read fantasy. I have read the Game of Thrones books, well, like 3 of them. Didn't really enjoy them that much. I've read those Crow books, or half of the first one. Didn't really like it. My brother actually is a huge fantasy reader, and he really wants me to get into fantasy, so he mailed me this book called Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, who I think is a huge fantasy author. I think he's like a really big deal, but I don't really know who he is. But he thinks that I might actually like this one because it's not as intense as most fantasy books. But from what I know about this book, it's set in a time where the bad guy won and there's a lord ruler or some like evil dude who runs the world, and he has all these little people that work for him, and there's these people who are like underground who are trying to like fight against the bad people, and I'm probably doing a terrible job of explaining this book. But apparently there's a girl named Finn, who is our main character, and she might have special powers, I think. And she might be trying to overthrow the evil ruler. I'm even doing a terrible job of explaining this because I'm not used to reading fantasy books. Like, I don't know anything about fantasy books. One of the complaints I saw, I've watched a few videos online just to kind of get a feel of what I'm getting myself into, is that this book has a lot of the standard fantasy tropes. And I'm like, that's perfect. I don't even read fantasy books, so I won't think they're been used before. So I'm nervous, I'm excited, and I hope I can get through this. I hope I'm not bored to tears, but this vlog is going to give you my thoughts as someone who does not read fantasy. I only read thrillers and romance, literary fiction. I never read fantasy. Just giving you my thoughts as a first-time reader of really fantasy and really the Mistborn series. So hopefully I have a good time, and stick around and I will update you with my thoughts as I go forward. I have been terrible at updating this because I've been so freaking busy, but I am more than halfway through Mistborn and I am loving it. I am very much thrown into this world. I've done a lot of my own personal research just because I'm the kind of person who can't just read something. I have to know the whole picture and like understand what's happening. But this is like the first fantasy book I've ever read where I'm actually enjoying it, actually like the characters, actually interested in the plot. So that's saying something. I'm going to give a brief overview of the world of this book, a brief overview of like the first 5 chapters, just so you have an idea of what this book is about. If you don't want to know anything about this book, if you think that's a spoiler, please skip the next few minutes because I'm going to go in and break down the world, break down what you need to know about this book going in. I personally think you should know this information going in, especially if you aren't someone who reads fantasy, because this shit is complex. I swear to God, every time I make a video, my cat goes to the bathroom. Every single time. Okay, like I was saying, I'm going to break down this world, give a brief introduction to the magic system of this world, and give a brief introduction of the plot. I am not a fantasy reader, so I am going to do my best to convey this to you. I'm doing a lot of my own research to kind of understand what's going on, just so I can adequately explain myself to you and have notes. I feel like I'm about to like give an oral argument in court. Like I've prepared and practiced and wrote down how I'm going to talk to you guys about this book. So before I get started, I wanted to give a shout out to where I got all these pictures from that you're about to see. I got them from the Melting Thought 2000.wordpress.com. I got them from the Mistborn wiki page. Obviously I did not draw any of these pictures and they are not my photos. And if you Google Mistborn, you can find any of these photos, but I just wanted to give a heads up about the pictures you're about to see, because since this is such a weird, complicated world, I think it makes more sense to give you a visual of these weird creatures and activities so you have a better idea of what the book is actually about. Okay, so Mistborn. We're in this world, I think the world's called Scadrial, I don't know how to pronounce it. And the Lord Ruler is kind of this evil bad guy. When we start the book, he's in charge of the whole world. He's running it. And we have two classes of people. We have the nobility, who are early supporters of the Lord Ruler, and then we have the ska, who are more like oppressed slaves. Some of the ska are actually what you would consider a slave, meaning they work for the nobility, like, plowing the fields and all that kind of stuff. But some of the ska are more in the city, underground thieves, just, kind of doing little heists to try to get money and survive. So in this world, the capital is called Luthadel. And Luthadel is where the Lord Ruler is. His palace, I guess you would call it, is called Kendrick Shaw. And everyone in Luthadel is there's like famous houses with really important nobility people surrounding the area. And then you also have the ska, like I talked about, who are more, the poor people, the slaves, people who don't really support the Lord Ruler. And that's kind of the overview of the world. Now, on top of that, there's a magic system in place in this book called allomancy. And allomancy is this magic system that runs on metals and different types of elements that people actually will take, and it will give them special powers. The thing is, not everybody has the power to use allomancy. There are two types of people who can access this power. There are mistings who can access only one of the special powers. And then there are Mistborn who can access all of the powers. So misting and Mistborns. Some of these powers range from being able to control people's emotions, being able to have super strength, to have heightened senses, to being able to tell if someone else is using allomancy. So there's so many different. Right now, I'm supposed to only know about 8 where I am in the book. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more than that because I've done my research. I didn't spoil myself, but I know that this magic system is a lot more complex than to where I am in the book. But, so, I think maybe she goes to the bathroom when she hears me talking. I'm very confused. She didn't even go to the bathroom. She went and moved the litter and then walked out. So I think she's fucking with me, if you want to know my honest opinion. Okay, like I was saying, we have mistings and Mistborns. Usually, the only people that have these powers are people who are nobility, who are close with the Lord Ruler, because the Lord Ruler is the person who I'm not supposed to know this kind of stuff yet, but has the ability to get this allomancy. I don't know how it happened yet at this point, but I know the ska are not supposed to be able to have these Mistborn special powers. So also in this world, we have Inquisitors, who are like these guys who fight for the Lord Ruler, and they have spikes to their head. I'm gonna see if I can find a drawing, put it here. We have obligators, who are kind of, in my opinion, like lawyers or like accountants. If you want to do any kind of business work in Luthadel or in this world under the Lord Ruler, you have to work with an obligator. So there's these so many different characters. I'm giving you a brief overview. So that's kind of what's happening in this world. We have this allomancy, we're dealing with the Lord Ruler, the nobility class, and then the ska. Our story in Mistborn is involving this girl named Finn, who is a thief. She, grew up very poor, trying to go on little heists to get money to survive. There's clans. And this is a spoiler, but it's a spoiler in the first 3 chapters. And I don't really think it's a spoiler, but skip this if you don't want to hear it. But she is a Mistborn, meaning that she has special powers where she can do all of the allomancy. She didn't realize that, but she meets a guy named Kelsier, and he is also a Mistborn, and he discovers her somehow, and he pulls her in to be in his clan, and we know that he's trying to do this rebellion to overthrow the Lord Ruler, and that's kind of the plot of the book. It's Kelsier trying to overthrow the Lord Ruler. That's a very brief overview of what I know, what's going on in this book. Finn is also learning how to use her allomancy, learning all the different things. She always knew that she could control people's emotions, but she didn't realize she had all this capability if she took different elements, because to do a special power you need a certain element that you eat. They have vials of the copper or tin or whatever, and they drink it so they can have their special power. But yeah, I think that is a brief overview of what Mistborn's about. The world, where our plot's going. I mean, I don't consider any of that a spoiler. I think you should know that going into the book, because if not, you're gonna be very lost. I had to do a lot of research. There's actually an index at the back of the book that kind of breaks down all the special allomancy magic system. I'm not used to magic systems. If you read fantasy, you're probably very good at magic systems, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So if you are watching this and you have read Mistborn, hopefully I did a good job. Let me know in the comments if I completely fucked it up. But for me, as a non-fantasy reader, that's where I am in this book. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying watching Finn discover her powers, kind of the plot and how they're going to go about overthrowing the Lord Ruler. But right now I'm having a freaking good time with it, and I will try to update more. And going forward, I'm not going to tell you anything about the plot, just kind of my thoughts and what I'm thinking and if I'm liking it. But yeah, that's what's going on in Mistborn. All right, first, it's Vin, not Finn. I don't know why I keep saying Finn. Her name is Vin, V-I-N. And also, I'm pretty sure I just spoiled something really important while I was trying to get pictures of the Lord Ruler. So, fuck. It's the next day. I am about 3/4 the way through Mistborn. And actually, the book is called The Final Empire, but I thought it was called Mistborn, but that's just the title of the series. And on every page it says Mistborn, so it looks like that's the title of the book, but it's not. It's called The Final Empire. But I'm really, really enjoying it. My favorite character so far is definitely Sazed, who's like this eunuch. And he like is a keeper of knowledge, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything. I've also been introduced to another magic system in this world, but I'm not going to go into that because I don't think you need to know that going into the book, and I don't want to spoil anything. I think when I was talking about the first magic system with Almancy, that's really all you need to know going in. But I am learning about the new magic system. There's a little bit of romance, which I'm actually liking, and I feel like most people who read fantasy books don't like romance, but I'm like really into this like romance aspect of the fantasy story. And I'm also really interested in how Vin is dealing with going undercover. I'll leave it at that, and kind of what she's feeling and her emotions on going undercover. See, I'm doing a better job not spoiling anything. But the plot's thickening, it's getting good. I should be able to finish this really soon. I'm highly enjoying it. And then hopefully next time I check in, I will be finished and kind of give you my closing thoughts, what I like the most about it, what I didn't like about it, and who I would recommend this book for. When I say new magic system, I guess it's all part of the same magic system. Fantasy nerds don't come at me. I don't know if they're technically considered different systems. It's all one big system probably, just I'm learning a new aspect of the system. All right, guys, last night I finished the first book of the Mistborn series, The Final Empire, and it was so good. It did not disappoint. The last fourth of this book was action-packed. I would say the first 3/4 of the book are very world-building character development. I was never bored, but it was definitely not go, go, go. You were really getting thrown into the world. But then that last fourth, it just did not stop. I read the last fourth like in a day because it was just, you couldn't put it down because things kept happening. I am gonna end up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5. Not a 5 because it's a 650 page book and there were definitely parts where I was bored. But for the most part, I was very entertained. Some positives were that I love the characters. I think the character development is amazing. You really start to care about the characters. And when I first started the book, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna remember these characters because they all have weird names. But Brandon Sanderson does a good job of really giving each of these characters unique qualities so that you remember them. So I already had like visions in my head of what they looked like, their personalities and stuff like that. So it was really easy for me to keep track of all the characters. I also love the magic system because I have never experienced a magic system. And while yes, it's complex, it was pretty easy for me to pick up. And I did do outside research, but I feel like if you go into this book and just kind of take it as it is, maybe use the glossary in the back, you really don't have to do outside research to understand the magic system of this book. However, the ending of the book, I had to look up what happened because I knew what happened, but I didn't really understand how it happened. And a lot of the people on like the Reddit and forums were saying, you know, what you know is what you're supposed to know. We can't tell you anymore without spoiling book 2, which I already have. And the Well of Ascension is something you learn about in Mistborn. So I read the back of this book and it sounds good. Am I gonna pick this up and start reading it now? No. Fantasy, like this was 650 pages, like I said, and it's a lot. I haven't even read that much this month because I've been focusing on this. So I'm probably gonna take a break. I would estimate that I'm gonna jump into this maybe close to Christmas. This will be like my Christmas read. But what I don't like about fantasy so far is the fight scenes. It's the same way when I'm watching a Marvel movie. I do not want to sit there and watch 10 minutes of people fighting. It does nothing for me. I usually get up and go to like, oh, that's my bathroom break. Oh, I'm gonna go make myself a cocktail because I know there's gonna be a 10-minute fight scene. Were there fight scenes in Mistborn? Yes, towards the end. I mean, I feel like you have to in a fantasy book, but it wasn't so much where I was like, ugh, skimming through the book. I mean, the fight scenes were necessary for parts of the plot, but for the most part, it was character driven, which I preferred. I don't want to sit there and read a book where I'm just like battles and it's just like 50 pages explaining a battle. And I'm like, I don't care who died. How does this affect the plot? I don't need 50 pages of fighting. And that's why I think Mistborn is a good book for people who are not into fantasy, because you don't get dragged into all that fighting. If you love fighting and fight scenes, this might not be the book for you because it really didn't have that much. I'm glad I did read Mistborn. I'm glad I stepped out of my comfort zone to read a fantasy book, and a pretty thick fantasy book at that. I'm definitely gonna read the rest of the series. Apparently there's like 3, it's almost like Star Wars. Like there's like the past, present, and there's like future books that he hasn't written yet. They're gonna be set in the future from what I've told. But if you're looking to step out of your comfort zone, I definitely recommend Mistborn. If you're someone who reads fantasy books and just wanted to listen to someone talk about a fantasy book who does not read fantasy books, I hope this was entertaining for you. I hope I captured everything correctly. Obviously, I'm sure I missed some things. Some of this stuff is really complicated. I know I mispronounce people's names because this stuff, you know, I mean, their names are not common. But I had a great time reading it. If you stuck around to the end, thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you in another reading vlog soon.